welcome to the Journey of Champions podcast powered by SportCirqls. I'm Helgard and I have with me Matthew. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you for having me, Helgard.
At the Journey of Champions, we are talking to champions from various sports and learn from their journey of what it takes to get to the pinnacle of sports. Today, we have a guest that has made it to the pinnacle of sport. He has competed all over the world. He represented South Africa in the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games. In 4 World Championships, African Championships, where he won silver in the Decathlon and bronze in the pole vault. He holds the South African and African record in the Decathlon with a record of 8,398 points. He has broken his own record multiple times. A good friend of mine, Willem Coertzen. Welcome, Willem.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you. And Willem, we've known each other for a long time, and there's been periods where we haven't had contact. But through the years, we've always had contact through sport. And for this podcast, I did a lot of research on you, and it is quite remarkable to see. And I think we're going to cover quite a lot of things. And it's remarkable to see where sport has taken you and where it's the opportunities it's given to you.
Yeah, no, definitely. If I look back 25 years ago up to where I am at this point, it's taken me quite a few places, met a lot of people, and definitely, created me into the person that I am today.
Willem, we met in Potchefstroom, but you grew up in Nigel. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Nigel, and where did the love of athletics or sports come from?
So Nigel is a very small little place, Gauteng province, very sort of countryside, rural type of place. Yeah, it was a good upbringing. I really had an awesome time as a kid. But yeah, my journey is athletics and when sport basically started from a young age, as we are from South Africa, as soon as you can start walking, a rugby ball is put into your hands. So, the passion has always been basically rugby. But yeah, during my career as a kid as well, I was always a very versatile athlete. So I did athletics, rugby, cricket, tennis, golf, anything with a ball. Yeah, so school competed on a lot of levels. Yeah, in athletics, rugby, did provincial athletics, the provincial rugby, the provincial cricket. So I was always very versatile. But yeah, after high school, went to study at the Northwest University now. So yeah, to go and play rugby. That was the dream, to become a Springbok one day. Yeah, that's every South African kid's dream. So yeah, went to the university and played rugby at the Northwest for the first 3 years up until my third year. And then just decided, you know what, let's go back to athletics for a bit and see how it goes. So it's a very strange story, actually, how I got into decathlon. One day, it was 2004, was the Athens Olympic Games. And I was walking past a sort of community hall in our hospital. You would remember this now, huh? And I just saw athletics on the TV. And I just went and I sat down and sat there for a few hours and I started following this decathlon event. And I thought to myself, these guys look like quite versatile sportsmen. And I thought to myself, you know what, if I give this a go, let's see how it goes. I remember calling my father and telling him about this event. And he said to me, well, Willem, go for it. You've got nothing to lose. So I remember then I met up with a coach there, one of our well-renowned coaches in South Africa. And yeah, for about 2 to 3 months, trained a little bit because a lot of the stuff was new, especially pole, which was was one of my Achilles heel events at the end of the day. And then prepared for about 2 months. Basically, just learned everything, and did my first decathlon in Bloemfontein. It was just me and another guy, just 2 of us. So because it's not a very well-renowned event. And did it and didn't do too bad. Although I have to say it felt like a bus run over my body after the 2 days of competing. But yeah, then that's where the sort of passion started. Yeah.
Willem, it's interesting. You mentioned the community hall at the hostel, and if I think back of those memories, and my first memory of you was actually first year's athletics. Now, for people listening all over the world, in South Africa, where we studied in Potchefstroom, at your first year of university, you are seen as the juniors, and then you have athletics day just dedicated to the juniors. And that day, Willem and I attended the same hostel, and you competed against all the other hostels. And that day, Willem cleared 2 meters in the high jump, and it was back then. It was a big deal, and he won athlete of the male athlete of the day because of he competed in a few other stuff, but that stood out to me, and it was the first time I actually saw, because I just grew up in rugby as well. It's the first time I saw a person live clearing 2 meters. So that is stuck in my mind after all these years. I still remember that quite clearly.
Yeah.
Willem, you said that you mentioned you saw it, you asked your dad and said, listen, you're going to go for it, and he said, yeah, go for it. But when did you actually realize, listen, this can become bigger than you thought? When was what's the moment that you realized?
Well, I think I basically realized after the first competition, sort of looking at what people in South Africa did before that in decathlon wise, the sort of scores they got. So at that point, I think the SA record was, I think, 7,520 or something from a guy in 1988 or something around this. Yeah, and I thought, I scored, I think my first comp was 6,680 points. And I thought, yeah, for somebody who hasn't done this at all, I've got no professional training or background in it, basically. And I'm only 700 points behind the guy who's actually got the South African record. So, yeah, so then sort of came the decision. And, yeah, I think almost the passion started there. And my thing has always been like that. As soon as I put my mind on something, then I'm going to go for the 120. So, yeah, that year still trained a little bit, but got to the sort of conclusion there's no coaches in South Africa for decathlon. So that's where my journey started towards the UK. So luckily in Potts, there's a lot of overseas athletes that come and train in Potts every single year. So I met a guy there as well, Raider Parker, a javelin thrower from the UK. And got friends with him as well. And he said to me, listen, Willem, we've got a really good coach in the UK. I can set up a meeting with you, and yeah, then see what you can do. So yeah, then the year after that, I got my honors degree, and then after that, I went to the UK. Luckily, a lot of our friends, you'll remember them as well. They went to the UK to go play rugby. So, luckily, already had people then. So I wasn't going by myself. So yeah, so made a decision and then went to the UK. We all stayed together as friends. About 10 guys from the same uni, same high school. Wasn't always the best idea, but it worked. It worked for that time.
Probably not the best environment if you wanted to become a professional sportsman.
Precisely. Yeah. So, but yeah, in the end, it worked. It worked out all good. Yeah, it just always shows, I've always got this quote where a guy says, what is meant for you will never pass you by. If it passes you by, it wasn't meant for you. Everything always worked out precisely the way it should have worked out. So yeah, that's where my journey started to the UK. Met this coach, started training with him on a definitely more professional level. This guy was an absolute amazing coach. He was a decathlete himself, and he coached one of the all-time greats, Danny Thompson from the UK. Towards the end of his career, coached Atki Newell, Estonian Olympic medalist, Dean Macy, yeah, the list can go on. So yeah, went to him and yeah, got involved in the group. We really had a very, very good group of guys there. We were about six guys and 3 girls. So it was really an amazing group. And that's where the journey started.
It's interesting you said you mentioned that there wasn't a lot of coaches in South Africa for the decathlon, and it's something that's been on my mind for a while now. South African schools, if you look at the competitions that they run at the inter schools, and it's all over the country, it's quite a high standard. And if you look at javelin, and if you look at discus, even the 100 meters, the 110 hurdles and stuff like that, it is out of a really high standard. But then there seems to be a bit of a drop off between schools and universities, or and clubs. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, on why do you think that is? Or and yeah, just elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, yeah, looking at our school systems, it is, I've traveled all over the world. I lived in the UK for 9 years. I've even been in Doha now as well, where I currently work for the last 4 years. Our school system, sporting wise, is absolutely insane. I don't think there's any country in the world that's got the system that we have. I think it's mainly, yeah, because we've got good, big schools. And there's a lot of rivalry between schools as well, and trying to get the best athletes, getting the best rugby players, whatever. So, it's a really good system. That's why I believe in the rugby. Currently, how the way our rugby goes is, I think we're going to be winning for the next 50 years. It's just absolutely, the level is just so more professional than it was 30, say 20, 30 years ago. So, yeah, it's just an absolute unbelievable system. The problem comes in specifically for athletics, not rugby as much, but it's a transfer from high school to university. Now, in rugby, say for instance, there's a lot more opportunities available, either for guys to go and play overseas or stay in South Africa. There's good systems with all the major clubs, Lions, Sharks, Bulls, etc., and so on. While for athletics, that's a totally different story. Everybody goes to university. Well, there is a good system in place. There's good coaches and whatever, but this might sound a little bit strange, but the biggest thing comes around money. There's no support for athletes. Even for me as well, I was the first time I started getting support from South Africa as an athlete was after the 2012 then Olympics. And then I was top 10 in the world. But that gap to get from where I started until that was almost 6 years. So where was the support in that? All the support came down to me and my wife at that point. I still had to do a full-time job and do an athlete and be an athlete. And people expect you to perform on the world stage. So it's a very difficult process, and I think that's where the problem comes in. Because a lot of kids look into the fact of, you know what, okay, so I'm a good rugby player or a good athlete. Where can I actually make a decent career out of it? Rugby, there's a lot more support. South Africa's lost so many athletes due to rugby. Guys who've won world juniors, discus throwers, javelin throwers, but then they get a contract at the Bulls or Lions, and it's a safer future. Where with athletics, you do not get a contract, you do not get paid every single month unless you're already on a high level. But to get to that point takes a lot. And not just from yourself as well, but from your parents. Your parents basically support this dream of you to get where you want to be one day. And that's the difficult bit. Because we've got the coaches, we've got the facilities, everything is there. It's just the support system for athletics in South Africa has been a bit of a letdown the last, yeah, let's say from 2008 almost. There was no structures in place, no funding available. It's only recently, like last 2 years ago, that it started back up again. So that's the biggest problem.
For us as SportCirqls, that's when one of our tools. That's where we've seen a gap in sports development. A lot, and not just in athletics, but actually, World Tennis approached
Yeah.
us with a solution as well. So we've got on SportCirqls, we've got a tool where you can actually sign up as an athlete. You sign up for free. You create your profile, but then you can run your own fundraising campaigns. And you can say what it's for, and then we basically share it around the world to all our contacts around the world. And you can get sponsored from companies from around the world and from communities around the world. Because we saw in a lot of sports, That's where the main gap is, the money part. And if you don't have the financial support and you can't train like a professional athlete, then it's comparing apples to oranges. You can't compete.
No, not at the highest level. Everybody I competed with were fully funded athletes. I had to do basically a full-time job to just keep my career. 2 weeks before my first Olympic Games, I stopped working. So I could just focus for 2 weeks on preparing for the Olympic Games. You don't really have to do that as a world-class athlete.
Yeah. I guess we've touched on this a little bit. I wanted to get a little bit to challenges that you might have had. And I think you've alluded to a lot of challenges that you've had. But how's those challenges actually shaped you and made you a better person and a better athlete?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely helped me a lot. Especially events like Decathlon that I competed in. It's a very hard event. And it's not a lot of people who get the opportunity to compete in it and have the abilities and potential to compete in it. You have to be such a versatile athlete and absolutely resilient, self-motivated. Athletics for me when I started this journey for Decathlon was never about money. It was all to see how good I can get, what I can do with the talent that God gave me. So, but at the end of the day, it's still need to get paid. But yeah, it was definitely difficult. I have to say, moving to the UK wasn't easy. Leaving your family behind. Um, the total unknown, not knowing it's going to work or not going to work. But at the end, it worked really, really good. But yeah, it definitely shaped me to be what I am today. And I learned very, very easily and very quickly as well that whatever you want in life, you have to work hard for it. It's not going to come easy. And Decathlon is definitely a good example of that. There's so much things that can go good. One year you're in great shape, next year everything changes. So yeah, it's definitely learned me a lot in life. Self-motivated, be resilient, keep on pushing forward. It's not always going to go good, but start pushing to the bad times will just make you stronger at the end of the day.
Willem, I just wanted to ask, with those challenges that came with the sport, did you ever consider a different path and what that path might have been?
Yeah, no, definitely. There was a lot of time, especially when you start getting injured. You start doubting yourself and think, oh, can I get up to that level again? It's like, especially like 2014, you had the Commonwealth Games. I was, yeah, basically in great shape. I was definitely in shape there to be a medalist. After that, 3 weeks before that, I had a meeting in Belgium, a competition, and injured my ankle 3 weeks before the Commonwealth Games. And yeah, went back to had a training camp in Glasgow just before the Commonwealth Games. And ankle felt fine, whatever, but didn't really test it as much. And yeah, competition started, got off to a good start, got to the high jump, third jump and high jump, felt like my Achilles was going to rupture. And yeah, I had to withdraw the Commonwealth Games. Just couldn't go any further. And after that point, really thought, you know what, Willem, all the sacrifice and everything you're doing, is it really worth it? But yeah, then went back to the drawing board, got it sorted out, and then pushed on to the next one. And the next year, 2015, was my best year in my whole career. But yeah, there's definitely times that quitting comes to mind. Luckily for me is also when I started this sort of journey, I said to myself, if I can't achieve a certain level, or I'm dipping below that level, then I know it's time to really call it quits. So, but yeah, there's definitely been times about thinking about quitting. But yeah, my passion has always been in athletics. So um, I've always gone, even if I did quit early or whatever, I would still carry on in athletics. It's an absolute awesome sport. And everything that I've learned as well, get the skills, all the knowledge that I built up, and that pour it into the kids of today, especially back in South Africa. Yeah, unfortunately now, not unfortunately, but now they are sharing that knowledge here. But yeah, that's always been the plan. So
And you touched on it earlier, Willem. Your journey started a bit later than others at
yeah, no, a
25
lot
years
later.
old.
Yeah, not late. Yeah, I mean, I was 23 when I started this. Most guys started like 16, 17 already. But it's just due to the fact that I didn't even know until 2004 when I was 23 about Decathlon. It's not a very well-renowned sport. Although I think if we had the right coaches there, all the facilities are there, but I think South Africans are the perfect example of decathletes because we are such versatile sports people. And as kids, you grow up in every single sport. We get very, very good conditioned kids, very well rounded. Yeah, or we can be, yeah, some of the top, but it's just unfortunately people get lost due to just not the right coaches and structures we need in South Africa.
It's very interesting you say that, Willem. In New Zealand, they do that really well in making sure that kids play a variety of sports at a young age. But where I do think it's a bit different, in South Africa, you continue with a variety of sports up until you're 16, 17, and only a few starting to specialize after that. Whereas I find in Australia, New Zealand, even the US, by the time you hit high school, they want you to specialize. Where
Yeah,
I think is sometimes, and the studies show it, where I think it's sometimes too early for athletes to specialize, and I agree with you that all these different sports give you versatility and skills you need to, and you can apply it in different sport in athletics or rugby or whatever.
yeah, it gives you a good foundation.
It gives you a good foundation, and yeah. And if you're in an individual sport like you are in athletics, then you've experienced the team culture as well, and you take different aspects from different places as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It gives you a good sort of background to draw from as well. Um, yeah, yeah. The individual sport is a lonely life because it's you, me, myself, and I. If you play in a team sport, you can get away with having a good day or a bad day or an off day or whatever. In athletics, if you're not good on the day, it's just you. You can't blame anybody else. Either you were physically prepared or mentally prepared, but it all comes down to you. And that makes it very difficult. I always say athletes or individual sport people are sometimes very selfish people in that sense of, everything comes down to you. So, if I do not perform, it was just me on the day. It wasn't somebody else. You can't blame other people.
While you're talking about that, I'm going to ask you. So, athletics, like you said, is a very individual sport, and if you go and train in the early mornings, you have to get up early morning, and you don't feel like it. You have to convince yourself to go. Whereas in a team sport, you can say, "Oh, you know what? I'm letting the team down, so I have to go because I'm letting the team down." Now, what attributes or what disciplines have you learned of yourself that you can give a little bit of advice to the younger athletes in regards to sacrifices that you have to make in individual sports? But also, how did you deal with the pressure and how did you deal with it to actually make sure you get up and go and train?
Yeah, well, I always say the days you do not want to train, those are the days that actually count. You never feel like training. There's a lot of days, and I thought to myself, waking up, because my training schedule was quite hectic as well. We trained 6 days a week. I only had a Friday off. So I had to train Saturday and Sundays as well. And to wake up Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, and go do a 2.5 hour session, Sunday the same, it takes a lot of motivation. I have to say, luckily, as I said before as well, if I put my mind on something, I'm going to do it until I achieve what I want to achieve. I even remember when I was still at uni as well, we always had this thing, you could probably remember this, where we always talked in the clubhouse about people, what they want to do and whatever. And I stood up one day and I said, you know what, I'm going to go to the Olympic Games. And there was a lot of people there sat there, was like laughing, like, Willem, please keep it real, man. Just be a realist. Don't be, yeah. And then one day that happened because I decided that's what I want to do. So I've always had a sort of high self-motivation and inner drive that kept me going. Yeah, it wasn't always easy, so, but I just learned to push through it because I just think the guys that I need to compete against, if I'm going to lay in bed and just not train today, they are all out training. and I've got to I'm sort of in the back seat now because I started quite late. So I need to catch up. So I think that's where most of my drive came from. It's just, I knew that I had to train and that's what I had to do. So, yeah, in the end of the day, it paid off. Yeah, I think I did quite a lot with what I had actually.
One of my son's coaches, my son is now he's 15 years of age, and he does a lot of sport, and he's quite passionate about sport. And one of his coaches said to him, "Champions train when others sleep."
Precisely.
So because he gets up like 5 o'clock in the morning and trains. So, and the one day he didn't want to, and he was a bit, he didn't want to get up, and the coach said to him, "Champions train when others sleep." So it resonates what you say.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's
Yeah,
not easy.
I'm gonna ask you a little bit more about that, because there's so much that young athletes, I think, can learn from you and from your journey. As you said, you ended up in the UK with a house full of university friends,
Yeah.
and not a lot of them were aiming to become professional athletes. They were already in jobs or in so, and knowing quite a few of them, I know they would have loved to on a Friday night after work have a party and have a good time. Now, as a professional athlete, you need to make certain sacrifices. How did you deal with that? Because there is peer pressure, and for a lot of our young athletes, there's peer pressure from a young age to they are challenged not make the sacrifice. So, what advice would you give them, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, as I said, as you mentioned now as well, wasn't easy, especially on weekends. Like I said, Friday was my day off, Saturday, Sunday I had to train. So I can't go out on a Friday night and a big party and wake up not feeling my freshest on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning. So it was difficult, I have to say. But it is a mindset and a choice you have to make. Nobody else is going to make it for you. And so I said previously as well, I decided this is what I wanted to do, and I'm going to pursue this to my fullest potential. Yeah, I just made the choice. I said, listen, you guys, this is what I'm going to do. Uh, Nobody's happy with it. It's my choice. You guys going to have to deal with it, but this is what I need to do. Yeah, that's just it paid off for me at the end. There's always time in your career when you have time off, when you can go and do it, be more social and whatever. While you're in season and training, that's what you need to do. You just can't sacrifice that because every session, training wise, is important. And our training schedules are so hectic in any case. If you miss one weekend, you can't go back and catch that up. It's already done. It's gone. So I had to make sure that I'm there for every single session to get where I wanted to be one day.
So I
But it
guess
is a difficult thing. I can understand in the new day and age, kids struggle with that a lot. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a choice you have to make. Yeah, either change your environment, move somewhere else where you're not sort of in the sort of environment where people do that. Uh, yeah, so I say, luckily, a good thing for me as well. I met my wife in the UK as well, and she helped a lot of that. Yeah, biggest thing is it's the choice you have to make, decide what you want to do, and chase it and give it your all.
yeah. Willem, you also represented South Africa in the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games. Now, it is a dream for millions of young athletes around the world in various sports to attend the Olympic Games. Can you just take us through that experience of representing and being at the Olympic Games, representing your country? What was it like, and what can you remember of it?
Yeah, I know Olympics is definitely the ultimate that you want to be one day, and that was my ultimate goal when I started. This was to go to the Olympic Games. Before the Olympic Games, I had the opportunity to represent South Africa at the 2009 World Champs in Berlin, which was probably, I think, one of the best World Champs. Being because it was in Germany, it was in Berlin, it was in the iconic stadium where I can't remember the precise date, when the first Olympic was still with Jesse Owens. This is sort of, this alternate picture of remember of the Olympic Games. So that was awesome. 1936. Just and standing up, it's an iconic time in athletics. To be able to compete there for me was an absolute honor. But even that would not prepare me for my first Olympic Games. Walking out of the Olympic Games, I'm even sitting here getting goosebumps now. Was an absolute awesome experience. And I think what made it even better for me is the fact that I was training in the UK, and where we stayed on the east side of Essex in the UK, the Olympic Stadium was built in Stratford. So as I traveled from there to Stratford to work or whatever, literally saw the stadium from the first brick that was laid down until the day I literally walked into the stadium and competed. So for me, 2012 was an absolute iconic Olympic Games for me. Just because I saw it from the ground up until I literally walked into the stadium there one day. So the crowd was absolutely awesome. British people love athletics. There's a long history in athletics as well. So it was, everything from the villages to everything was it was phenomenal.
It's I remember the 2012 Olympic Games quite clearly, and it is just because we were glued to the screen to see you compete in the Olympic Games. We were already in New Zealand, and so the time difference was quite hard to follow. But we would stay awake, me and my wife, and our son was quite little back then. But we would stay awake just to see you. That we were looking at the opening ceremony just to see if we can spot you in the crowd.
Yeah.
It was a special time.
The support was absolutely amazing. People from everywhere in South Africa, people I haven't spoken to, the support was absolutely, amazing to compete and represent South Africa. It was an awesome experience. Definitely one of my tops in my life.
I just wanted to ask, well, you were talking about the goosebumps when you walked in 2012 at the Olympics. That would have come with a lot of pressure on top of it. How did you sort of handle that?
Yeah, no, I have to say that, lining up in the 100-meter start, which is always the beginning of day one in the decathlon, I literally felt like my heart was going to run out of my chest down the 100 meter and do the sprint for me. It is a lot to handle. Mentally, it really is. Luckily, the thing is I just told myself, Willem, you worked hard, you're in good shape. Just enjoy it. The biggest thing is enjoy. Don't put too much pressure on you. I think luckily in that sense as well, I think the pressure if you're a potential medalist is a lot higher. At that point, I sort of just started coming into sort of the higher ranks of decathlon. So for me, it was just all about enjoying it. My parents were in the stadium as well. So I just wanted to make them proud and just do the best that I can on the day. But it's difficult to deal with. But lucky for us is, after the 100 meter, everything just subsides a little bit. Because then you still know, okay, a lot of events left. And I will say, as decathletes, you're actually the quite luckiest athlete because you get 2 days of exposure. Guys who run 100, just run 100, boom, they're gone. Okay, come back the next day, literally get about 30 seconds of airtime. We are there constantly for 2 days. So, for me, it was just about enjoying it. My first Olympics, and it was an awesome experience.
Now, Willem, I'm just going to ask you, during the Olympics, you guys have 10 events that you have to compete in. And then sometimes you have breaks in between the events and rest time. How did you keep yourself ready, and what did you guys do? What did most of the athletes do during that time where you couldn't really cool down, but you also need to have a bit of rest and you need to recover? So what did you do during that time?
Okay, so usually when you compete in the big meetings, you've got almost like a resting area for multi-eventers. And so that's where you can go and rest in between events. Roughly, usually the first 3 events on day 1 and 2, you don't have a big break in between. So you basically move from one event to the other one. But there's usually quite a big break after. Okay, first event is 100, long jump and shot put. And then you have a bit of a bigger break before high jump and 400. So what we usually tend to do is just go to the resting area. Just lay down a bit. You're still fresh, luckily, on day 1. So you're not really taking a nap or anything. Day 2, a bit of a different story. But yeah, I would just sit there, just try and relax, listen to some music, yeah, and not try and overthink everything. The biggest thing with a decathlete, especially after day one, is you try and sleep after day one, because you're laying in bed and sort of recapping everything in a day. Oh, what could I have done better in the 100? What could I have done in the long jump, the shot put, the high, the 400? It's very difficult to switch off after day one. Uh, and yeah, before you know it, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you still haven't slept. And you have to wait 6 o'clock, and then day two is on again. And day two is the toughest day. I always say good and average decathletes get divided on day two, because the first day is the easy ending, because anybody can run and jump. But the second day, hurdles is okay, but then it comes to more difficult. Discus, pole vault, javelin, 1500, which are, yeah, difficult events. So, yeah, very technical, especially the pole vault as well. The pole vault, it's an awesome event, but it was a bit of an Achilles heel for me. It looks always nice when people do it.
Yeah, but yet you won a silver medal in the African Games.
Yeah, that was basically just to fill in for the competition, to make sure that everybody can compete, and that was after Decathlon. So I wasn't really gearing for that pole vault, but I said, you know what, I'll do it just to make sure the guys have a good comp or whatever. So seeing as in Africa, there's not a lot of pole vaulters. Um, but yeah, no, it is the pole vault is very technical. If you think about it, running down a one way with a pole in your hand, stick it in a box, get inverted, go straight up in the air, and then come straight down. Yeah, I don't know. I always say pole vaulters need to be a little bit crazy. There has to definitely have to be something wrong with him mentally. But
We've
yeah,
spoken about the highs and stuff, but there's always a few lows in the career as well. And 2016, you had to withdraw from the Olympic Games. That must have been a bit of one of your low, challenging times for you.
yeah, no, definitely was. My last one definitely would have been, 2016 should have been a great year for me. But yeah, this is stuff you learn as well as you go on. If I look back at it now, where I am now as a coach, looking at the way I trained in 2015, I think to myself, Willem, what is wrong with you? You can't train like that. It's impossible. You're already training hard enough, almost more than you should do as an athlete. But I just went to the next level in 2015. In 2015, it helped. But going into the 2016 season, absolutely destroyed a lot of my good stuff. Where I've always been a good jumper and so on, but it just absolutely destroyed my high jump, all my jumping events, just from running too much. Trying to focus on events that really, if you're improving that, it's going to make a minuscule difference. So I put a lot of work into the 1500, which is not a lot of people do it, because 1500's got nothing to do with the rest of the 9 events. It's a total separate. It's got nothing to do with speed, explosiveness, and power. It's just endurance. But it was an easy event to get points in, because every second is 7 points. So to try and run quicker in that, I'd put a lot more work into it, but that just absolutely killed my fast foot contact, springing my legs, everything. And that sort of flowed into 2016. And then just started creating more injuries and problems. At that point, I was getting a little bit older as well. So yeah, for me, it was devastating going there and not being able to finish that was my last Olympic Games. But that's decathlon. If you look at a decathlon competition, you've got 25 guys starting, 10 guys starting. At the end of the decathlon, you'll be lucky if there are 20 guys finishing. You're constantly on the line of overtraining as a decathlete, and injuries occur beforehand, and you try and overcome that before the competition, because it's the Olympics. Just try and work it out, or get injured during the decathlon. It's like a roller coaster ride in decathlon. But yeah, unfortunately for me, I just couldn't complete the 2016 Olympics. But yeah, it was definitely a low for me. But that's sports. That's how I learned. That's how it goes in sports. You have to take the highs and lows and deal with it, and maybe come back stronger. So
when you look back at your career, who would you say had the biggest influence on your career? If you had to single out a coach or a family member, or maybe both, who had the biggest influence on your career and why?
I think there's two people that I basically looked at coming up into Decathlon. There's one guy from Czech Republic, Roman Sebely, who was the world record holder. So for me, it was always an iron. The first guy I saw when I saw 2004 Olympic Games as well. He was the star at that point and world record holder as well. So I always looked up to him. But I have to say my biggest influence was definitely my coach in the UK. Greg was an awesome coach. Yeah, we had such a good group there as well. And the way he handled us as athletes from different cultures as well. We were South African, Scottish, Irish, Australian, and we were quite a big or diverse group. So, and how he was as a coach was just phenomenal. The knowledge that he had was mind blowing. And yeah, he's sort of still today, a lot of the stuff that I do today and what I've learned is based on what he taught us as well. So he was really a bigger influence on my career.
It's amazing how certain individuals and coaches can just. There's a lot of people that cross your path, but there's one or two that always sticks out and say, "Listen, this is the one who really made a difference."
Yeah, no, definitely. No, listen, my influence, Greg, was definitely that person. Yeah. It was all about passion for him. It was never about accolades. And, you get a lot of coaches who sort of thrive on what their athletes do. For him, it was never about that. He was just trying to find this athlete that he's got before him, trying to get the best out of him, taking his abilities, coach him, and see how far he can get. It was just such a down to earth and just modest guy. Yeah, and as I said previously, it's such a big influence on my career and what I am today as well as a coach.
It's usually the people who just wants to give back to an athlete and who to a program or to a sport that makes the biggest difference in that particular sport. And I try to say to young athletes and young people, find a person who is in it for you and who wants to make you better and who will be honest with you, not just say yes on or everything you say. They'll actually challenge you.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, it's all about the athlete. Really about that specific kid that we're coaching at that point, especially coming from South Africa as well and being involved in South African sport there as well, not just as an athlete, but as a coach and involved in schools and so on. You see this quite a lot, especially more, not so much from coaches, but a lot from parents. Parents try and live vicariously through the lives of their kids, which is not always a good thing. They push kids extremely hard. Sometimes when I go back as well for holiday and go to competitions of where my own kids are competing, people come to me like, but you probably coach your kids every single day. I say to them, no, not at all. I just let my kids be. It's my kids are 11 years old and 14 years old. There's no such thing as a professional 11-year-old. Kids develop so differently. You see a kid 1 year at 10 years old running, beating everybody with 50 meters in 100. 2 years later, that kid doesn't even compete in athletics anymore. It's developed so different. You get a lot of early developers. I preferably always prefer low developers. The kids who sort of start shooting to at a later age. Because kids, especially on a younger age, when they sort of get a lot of success, mentally it's very difficult for them as they get older. They start losing. They do not know how to handle this type of pressure. So I always prefer as I said, especially in school system, there's a lot of people in coaching with the wrong intent, and not there for the athlete themselves. It's all about developing kids at a later age. I always say, nobody cares what you did in primary school or high school. Nobody's ever asked me what I do in primary school or high school. It matters what happens on a senior level. That's when it starts mattering. Just giving the kids the skills and abilities and the different mental aspects of whatever to be able to compete at that level one day and not try to make a professional 14, 15-year-old. That doesn't happen.
It's very interesting you say that. I listened to a sports show, and they spoke to, I can't remember the name, but they spoke to the guy. He was in charge of sourcing talent in Australia to get them prepared for the 2000 Olympic Games that was hosted in Australia. That was in Sydney. That was the Kathy Freeman Olympics where she ran in the bodysuit. And he came across the similar things that you just said. He said there would be when he rocked up to a place, there would be people with their 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds saying, "Look at my kid." He said he's never seen a 10-year-old world champion. He's never seen a 10-year-old Olympian 100-meter sprinter. So he said parents need to get over that and say, let kids be kids. Let them develop.
Yeah, let them develop. Yeah, no, it plays a big psychological impact on kids as well. Yeah, so as I said previously, kids at a young age, kids it's not their fault for their early developer or whatever. They just need to manage it more. And then just let the kids be. But parents just get into too many specific specialized coaching methods. Those kids that are 11 years old train the same way I did when I was a professional athlete. You're going to burn the kids out. And that's it. There's a coach in South Africa, Tom, that I've known all my life, a coach Sean Downs as well, as previous South African record holder in the 110 hurdles. And he said to me, Willem, every athlete has got 10 years. You have to decide how you're going to use that 10 years. Are you going to use it from 10 to 20 or from 20 to 30? It's your choice. You've only got 10 years. And that's why I see some kids start training at a young age, like professional athletes at 11. So by the time they're 20, 21, they're totally burned out. So it's always, it's a difficult situation as well. But
my opinion, I don't have any factor on it, but it's my opinion. That's when kids at a young age get very serious injuries. They pick up very serious injuries at a young age just because they're pushing their bodies too hard.
Way too hard for at that point development wise where they are. Kids grow so to say you see a kid at 14 and the next year you see him again, it's like a totally different person. Kids grow differently and it's got a big impact on their growth and all those kinds of stuff. Yeah. One good thing I like about the German system with their kids, they teach kids in schools in athletics, you run, you jump, and you throw. Until you get to a certain age, 15, 16, up to then we see, okay, listen, this kid has got more potential towards throwing or jumping and then start moving into something else. But they force their kids to run, jump, and throw at early age. Give them all the skills that they need, good conditioning, all-round body control and whatever, and then from there you can start moving on. In South Africa, we don't really have that. Get too specialized way too early.
Yes, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Willem, as you mentioned, you started coaching, and so your career, your professional career competing or competition wise finished in 2017. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about how did you get into coaching?
So luckily when I was in South Africa as well, because after we came back, after the 2012 Olympics, we came back from the UK back to South Africa, and got involved at the university there as well, coaching the multi-eventers, and started getting involved in the school system as well. Luckily I've been in coaching for the last 4 years before I retired as well. So that sort of gave me a good groundwork, when I started retiring from athletics as well, which is a good thing. Definitely get involved. Luckily I could still be involved in my passion. And try to take what I've learned and experienced over life and help kids with this. So, after that, got involved into the school system, got involved in one of the high schools as well. So for me, it was always a gradual, into retirement. So luckily I can still coach and be involved in the passion of it. So, it's for some other guys, some guys retire and they just stop totally coaching. That becomes mentally a difficult thing. Even for me as well, mentally, it's very difficult coming from almost like this pedestal of, you're one of the top guys in the world and all of a sudden, boop, you just drop down and now it's just a normal person. Not in a bad sense, but, you're on this high level and all of a sudden, boop, okay, now what now? So it's good to have something where you can still be involved in your passion, which I luckily had and still been involved for the since I retired in 2017. So it was a good entry into retirement.
And what skills did you transfer from being an athlete to where you are now?
I think definitely, the perseverance of always pushing forward, um, teachers as well, helping them to be motivated and, talking to them and discussing what I went through as an athlete and passing all this expertise over to them as well. Because everybody always just see the performances and what you did and achieved as an athlete, but nobody understands what you have to go through to get there. And that's always that sort of example of an iceberg. Now, the iceberg is only the small at the top of the boat, but you don't see the big foundation at the bottom. And that's what I always try and transfer over to kids, especially when I coach in multiple levels, which is not an easy event, especially mentally. You have to be very, very mentally tough to get through a decathlon, not even compete at a high level. So that's sort of what I always try and talk to kids about, my experience, what I had to do, because nobody knows that. Anybody thought you were just an athlete training every single day, eating, sleeping, getting the best recovery, best food, and whatever. But nobody knew that I still had to have almost a full-time job, 2 weeks before the Olympic Games, which is unheard of, for most athletes. So I always try and transfer those skills and experiences that I had into young kids so they get an understanding of what it takes to get there. So it's not an easy road.
And you're in Doha at the moment. What
Yes,
are
yeah,
you
yeah.
doing
Coaching.
there?
So yeah, basically I coach for the Decathlon Olympic Federation as head coach of Decathlon. So my role here is to try and find young upcoming athletes. So we're looking at youths and juniors, moving up into junior and senior rank eventually. Yeah. So we've got a big project here currently. 2030, the Asian Games is in Doha, in Qatar. So everything is sort of geared towards that. Yeah.
Willem, I know you mentioned the sacrifice and that people only see the glamour or the good parts of being a professional athlete, but I do believe there's similar for good coaches as well.
Yeah.
And for example, just for our listeners and our viewers, Willem is making sacrifices. His family is back in South Africa. His kids, young daughters are back in South Africa, and his wife, and he's coaching. He's living his passion in Doha, and he's changing lives. Can you maybe just, if you had to, looking at your coaching career, looking at your career as an athlete, can you give some advice to a young athlete that's up and coming? What do you think they need to do to really become successful? And then for coaches that is looking into becoming a decathlon coach, what are the things that they need in their resources to become a successful decathlon coach?
I think, well, my advice to young athletes, I think would definitely be the most important thing for me is to have fun with it. Don't take it too serious at a young age. Enjoy the sport. At the end of the day, it's just a sport. Your whole life doesn't revolve around it. If you do not succeed, life will still go on. There are other options, other stuff to do in life as well, but just enjoy it. If you start losing the fun out of athletics, that's when, it's maybe time to find a different path. But if you're really in it and you want to achieve something, then you're going to have to make sacrifices and you're going to have to push through things that are uncomfortable. It's not an easy road, but the fun and the passion should still be there. The same for me in coaching as well. As you said, I've made sacrifices being away from my wife, from my kids. It's not easy. There's a lot of days and nights I wake up and I think like, well, what are you doing? You're missing out time with your kids and your wife. But coaching for me is a passion. I like what I do. I like taking what I've learned in life and my knowledge and experience and passing it on to young kids. So that's why I'm here. It's all about passion. Athletics is, for me, coming where I'm from as well. It's never about money. It's all about passion. And if you keep that passion or that fire burning for coaching, then I think you're on the right track as a coach and as an athlete.
Um, if you reflect on your journey and you think about your career and as a coach, what's the one thing or two things that you would like people to remember about you? When they think about Willem the athlete or Willem the person or Willem the coach, what's the things that you want them to remember of you as, yeah?
If I think about it, I think as an athlete, I would like people to, remember, this basically guy who came out of nowhere, with not much, resources or whatever, provided to him to, really make a difference, and show kids that you don't need everything to be successful in sport. I came from a small little town. When I started achieving on a high level, like a lot of people were like, where did this guy come from? I was never heard of in school level. You get kids who are in school, everybody knows who they are from primary to high school and whatever. I was just a normal kid, never won anything. I was always like fourth or fifth, sort of in that sort of places when it comes to athletics. But just I think would be for people to remember that, if you've got a dream, you want to achieve something, and you really want to do it, you can make it happen. And I definitely made it happen. I think with what I had and, the talent that God gave me, I think I really did the utmost best that I can. I think that's sort of if kids should one day remember me as, that type of person, that if you want to do something, you can do it. Not even looking at me as well as you look at somebody like Wade van Niekerk. Who would have ever thought, this kid coming from, rural Bloemfontein, in South Africa and breaking Michael Johnson, the legend of that is Michael Johnson's world record. Just shows you that if you want to achieve something, you can do it. You put your mind to it, decide, make the choice, and do it. Doesn't matter what your obstacles are, what your financial situation is. If you want to make it, if you want to do it, you go for it. Do not doubt yourself and do not doubt what other people say about you.
Willem, I'm going to add a little bit to that. One of the reasons we started up SportCirqls as a platform, we wanted to make sure that a kid from Nigel, a kid from wherever in the world can access the same type of resources and have the same access to the same type of resources as a kid that went to the most flashiest private school. But we can only provide the tools, and we try and provide them with tools, with diet, nutrition, and all those type of things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the person. It comes down to if you want to make the effort, and if you want to make it work. And I can truly say, Willem, although we are half the globe apart from each other, we are when I talk about athletes and I talk about friends, I mention you quite a lot just because of the respect I have for you, for the work you've done to get where you got. And I've got lots of respect for you, and I mention you to my son quite often because he's got ambitions, like I mentioned, ambitions to becoming a professional sportsman, and I do mention you a lot to him. So I've got the utmost respect for what you've achieved, and thank you for joining us in our podcast and our show. I truly believe that I think a lot of young athletes can learn from you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I hope so. That's the end of the goal. To pass everything on so people can learn out of our mistakes and what we've done right and what we've done wrong. So,
Matthew, thank you also for your time.
No worries, guys. It's been a pleasure learning from Willem.
thank you very much. Yeah, pleasure talking to you guys.
Okay, if you're looking to get discovered, looking for pathways in sport, set up your sports CV, a place to fundraise or manage sport, download the SportCirqls app from the App Store or the Google Play Store, or go to sportcirqls.com and sign up. If you like the content and you like our show, please follow us and like our content. SportCirqls, your journey, your story, your future.